On this edition of the program, a deep dive into Kamala Harris's debate history. Hello and welcome everybody to the Politics program for September 6th, 2024. Your old pal Justin Robert Young joining you here in Austin, Texas. I hope you like hearing Kamala Harris talk because we are going to listen to it a lot. Going back to her first federal debate in 2016, we're going to break down each time Kamala Harris stepped up to a higher level of national repute when it came to debates. 2016, 2019, 2020. Let's go ahead and get going. We begin our journey with Kamala Harris seeking her first federal office. This is the office of Senate. The way that California works is that you can have two Democrats running against each other, and that is exactly what is happening here. Let's check the tape. All right, this is Kamala's opening statement here. You always put a lot of time into what you are going to say first to make sure that you have a good first impression. Here we go.
And I was happy to speak with Sheriff McDonald tonight about that. In terms of this election, I agree. It's one of the most important that Californians are looking at in terms of the future of California. I am a proud daughter of California.
How many times are we going to say California, Kamala?
I believe, to the point of your question, that when we talk about this issue from the context of what it means to be a Democrat or Republican, that frankly most issues that Californians care about,
Red Hot Chili Peppers level of the word California,
are not even bipartisan, they're nonpartisan. I have traveled up and down this state as the Attorney General of this state. I have never met somebody who is concerned about the things that they are concerned about when they wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning through the context of whether they're registered to the Democratic or Republican Party. When the folks that I meet with across the state at 3 o'clock in the morning wake up, it is because they are concerned about whether their children...
Who is she meeting with at 3 o'clock in the morning? Not a great start. All right, so it seems like she is getting her sea legs under her. This is the biggest debate that she has done thus far, which is something that you should keep in mind because the debate she's going to do on Tuesday is also the biggest. All right, here's an interesting moment. This is the first time that Kamala Harris is attacked in this debate. Sanchez is going to say that she was not involved in a conversation about body cam footage. As you can remember, in 2016, we have the beginnings of conversations around police violence that obviously crests in 2020. Here we go.
And to take a look at these shootings that are going on, my opponent said no to that. Retired Supreme Court Justice Reynoso said, this is imperative to do, even if just temporarily. We have to build the trust back in our communities. And I would like to add, because you didn't give me my 30-second rebuttal from earlier, so I would like to take...
All right, we're going to skip ahead a little bit to get to Kamala. Here we go.
Ms. Harris, 30 seconds.
Well, I think the Congresswoman, when she talks about someone being absent, should look at roll call in Washington, D.C., which is named that she is number 3 in a House of 435 members, most truant and failing to attend meetings. So when we talk about absent, I think it is important that you show up, and that's the kind of leadership California wants. In terms of what we are talking about in the criminal...
All right, I want to highlight that right there because that is something I believe you're going to see a lot during the debate with Trump. Trump is going to attack Kamala Harris consistently, not only on the record of the Biden administration, which he has been running against, but also with Kamala Harris's backtracking of her 2019 positions. There's going to be a lot of legitimate fire directed toward her. What you just saw there was not Kamala responding to the barb that was sent at her, but rather but also you rebuttal. She didn't say that she was present at the meetings that she wasn't present at. She says, you show up late to work too much. You're too busy running for office that you're not actually in office right now. Those, I believe, are going to be her bread and butter in this debate on Tuesday. Because she doesn't have a lot to say for the Biden administration, and she doesn't have a lot to say about every position she took in 2019 not being her positions in 2024. What she does have a lot of are, but you are Donald Trump, and therefore I would like to explain why you are awful.
We've got to resolve it, and the reality is that I believe the voters are going to pass that initiative, and recreational marijuana will be legal in the state of California. And on the federal level, what we have to do is move it from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2. We have incarcerated a...
Okay, I want to point something out here that for audio listeners, you're not going to be able to tell, but for video listeners, you can. It's a body language thing, and it's something that I've noticed with Kamala Harris. She has a tendency to drop her eye level or raise her eye level while she's talking. And it is when she is least effective. When she is most effective, and we're going to get to a clip here in a second with this, she is dead on, prosecutorial, even-toned, and very, very clipped. She will read fact after fact after fact after fact and then get out. When she is at her worst is when she is restating the question, filibustering, or just listing things that are popping into her head that are related to the keyword that was given by the moderator. And body language-wise, she's at her worst when she is not coolly and dispassionately looking forward and talking, but rather looking up, which denotes that you are thinking, or looking down, which makes you look shameful, right? Like you are... that's what happens when your kid makes a mess. They look down while they're talking to you. Kamala, in this instance, is looking at her notes a lot. I wonder whether or not that is a habit she is going to try to break, and we're going to see as we keep going forward in these clips whether or not she does it consistently up until 2020 at the very least. But in this case, like, look, we're just even going to go without audio. And just look at each time that she dips her eye down. There's one, there's two, there's three, and that is all in one answer. And there were two or three there before that I stopped the tape on. All right, you want best case Kamala Harris? Let me show you best case Kamala Harris. This is a moment where she takes her opponent's applause line and then jams it right down her face hole. Look at this.
We unionized the dispensary.
Ms. Harris?
We unionized the dispensary. Can there be a more California in 2016 applause line? She's looking dead in the camera. Her opponent Sanchez says, pause for applause. Look at Kamala Harris, turn her hips, put the full wood of the bat on this, and knock her out of the park.
30 seconds for you if you'd like.
I think we need to look at the Congresswoman's record on this issue, because frankly, the Congresswoman, when we look at the record, will see that she has voted for policies in this country that have led to mass incarceration of people.
Boom. The Congresswoman. Not you, not my colleague, not Loretta Sanchez, the Congresswoman. What the Congresswoman has done is mass incarcerate people. Quick, clean. Now let's get into the bombs.
The Congresswoman voted in favor of legislation that would allow a 13-year-old to be prosecuted as an adult.
Boom!
The Congresswoman voted for legislation that would allow mandatory minimum sentences for juveniles. That is not
Boom!
evidence of someone who understands what we need to do to reform the criminal justice system in this country.
All right.
And she's out. She's out. Notice the difference. There's no restating the question. There's no looking down. There's no, well, the point of life is to live life and have life be lived. Stated the fact, 2 bombs, get the hell out of Dodge. That is prosecutor Kamala Harris and somebody that needs to show up on Tuesday. Now, here's the other side of that coin. This is a question about water policy in California for anybody who's driven between Los Angeles and San Francisco. It's down Route 5. You see a lot of these billboards that say there's a man-made drought in the Central Valley. Farmers are choking, and it's all because of Sacramento and D.C. This is a very big local issue. And water rights in the West are something that are increasingly talked about more and more. I showed you an example of Kamala heat-raying her opponent. This is the other side where she's doing a little bit too much tap dancing.
Right. Water is one of the biggest issues challenging our state and our country and the globe. I was just in Modesto last week with the farmers there, having an extensive conversation with them throughout the day. And what we know is this.
All right, so what do we... Water is important. Yes, we know water is important. I just met with farmers. Apropos of nothing. She's not going to talk about an anecdote from that meeting and I was there, I talked to Joaquin Alvarez of wherever, and he grows beets. And he told me the following: nope, just water's important, and I met with farmers. And now we get into more listing.
We, as California, are the canary in the coal mine, and we can be the leader on this issue of water for our nation and our globe. And that means doing what we have done here, doing more of it, and taking it at a national scale around recycling, around what we need to do around conservation, what we need to do around capturing stormwater and storage of water, in particular underground, and desalination. We're doing that work here. We need to do it as a nation. We all should.
All right, so we are the canary in the coal mine, but also we're a leader in the nation. And so we're doing good things. We need to do them nationally. None of that speaks to California specifically. And that's what this question is about. What are you going to do about California's policies? Not let's talk about California as a model for the rest of the country.
Should also understand that this is a matter of public health. We as human beings require water to drink.
And this might be Kamala Harris's worst habit. Her worst habit is when she knows she is making a frivolous point, which in this case is humans need water to drink. She smiles and laughs. It is an idiosyncratic part of her delivery that has been a hallmark of some of her worst moments. The one that you have probably seen the most was when she was asked as vice president why she had not been to the border yet. She said, yeah, but I haven't been to Europe, and smiled and laughed because of it. It shows that she is over her skis, and it is her trying to diffuse tension in a moment that she feels uncomfortable. All right, let's get to another good answer from Kamala. This is her talking about her record as a public prosecutor, and specifically crime, something that she will have to answer a lot of on Tuesday.
Difference in our minds and in policy between violent and serious crime and nonviolent and low-level offenses. And as it relates to violent and serious crime, there's no question, serious and severe consequence and accountability, and lock them up. As it relates to low-level offenses and...
Boom, I just want to stop us there. Law and order liberal. Kamala Harris, at this stage in her career, very much could have been a law and order liberal. That is how she ran as Attorney General of San Francisco. It's how she ran for Attorney General of California. It is how she is now running as Senate. That 2019 primary brought her way off the map. But the way she answered that is the way she's going to have to answer it on Tuesday. Start with the crime part. I am not excusing crime. I am not excusing violent crime. If you commit a violent crime in the state of California, Kamala Harris as Attorney General will lock your ass up. We also need to have a better idea of low-level crime, and here she goes explaining that.
Nonviolent crime, we need another approach, and one that shuts the revolving door. I've done that work. As District Attorney of San Francisco, I created a model initiative for the country, a reentry initiative focused on low-level offenders and getting them jobs and counseling, substance abuse, and we turn their lives around and we reduce the likelihood that they will reoffend. That's the kind of work that we need to do statewide and nationally, which is why I wrote a book back in 2008 called Smart on Crime. You can all buy it for about $2.99 on Amazon.
And a joke. And a joke. That's when it's appropriate to laugh. When you tell a funny joke. All right, one more clip from this debate, just because I think it's a good example of a point Kamala can actually make word for word on the debate stage on Tuesday. It involves a big strength of hers, and that is reproductive rights. As we might remember, back in June, many Democrats might have blocked it out of their minds, but the big moment that you knew that things were getting irreparably awful for Joe Biden was when he was handed a gift. Please, Joe Biden, talk about abortion and the taking away of Roe versus Wade by the Supreme Court. And halfway through his answer, he was talking about migrant crime, a gigantic liability for him. Kamala Harris will not make that same mistake. She might be able to make a comment like this one, which I think is really good.
From using public health insurance for abortions, and please explain.
I absolutely am in support of choice and a woman's right to make decisions about her own reproductive health, and I absolutely am opposed to anything that would limit her in terms of the resources and access to resources that are necessary to achieve that purpose. Listen, the bottom line is this. It is very clear, and I've been a fighter for a long time on this matter. We have to support a woman's right to make a decision over her own health and her own reproductive health care. And a society that denies a woman that ability is also a society, by the way, that denies an ability access to economic health and well-being. This is a very big issue, and the government should not stand in the way.
There we go. Abortion is not only about a woman's right to control her body, but also her economic well-being. Economy. This is a unique lane that Kamala can take that Joe Biden or any man, frankly, could not, which is look directly down the barrel and say, women understand that being able to control their body also means that they control their career. A career will be able to take them away from bad situations, will make them financially independent from relationships that are harmful, sometimes fatal. This is not just about elective abortions or frivolous abortions. This is safe, legal, and rare, and specifically one that will continue to allow women to be on an equal footing in the economic marketplace. There are more women than men in America. Obviously, the issue of abortion does not cleanly cut upon those lines, but anything that you can do to help give you some kind of foothold into the economic argument from a position of strength, if you can throw a little ladder from abortion to the economy, it's better than doing the opposite and leaving them totally disconnected. The more you can connect them, the better. That's a good line, and they should consider using it on Tuesday. Let's zip ahead to June 27th, 2019. Kamala Harris is back on stage debating. This time it is night 2 of the first Democratic debate back in June 27th of 2019. You know, Kamala gets a lot of clowning because she raised a lot of money to run for president in 2020 and didn't make it past 2019. But let's also remember that the first debate was in June of that primary. And there were so many candidates that NBC had to do 2 nights. That being said, there is a lot of reporting around this that Kamala Harris workshopped a big line to take down the frontrunner. That frontrunner, Joe Biden. I don't think that there is any question that Kamala Harris is at her best when she has prepared material. She is a prosecutor, after all. Prosecutors just don't get up to the stand and then start freewheeling. They have their plan of attack and they are trying to execute it in the best way possible. This is Kamala Harris dressing down Joe Biden as an old, broken down racist who personally affected her. Here we go.
I've also heard, and I'm going to now direct this at Vice President Biden. I do not believe you are a racist. And I agree with you.
No one ever wants to hear that, by the way. No one ever wants to hear. I never want to hear read in an email, I know you're not a racist, but. Anyway, because and Joe Biden right now is looking down. He looks so much younger. Good God, back in 20. He looks so much younger.
When you commit yourself to the importance of finding common ground. But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of 2 United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing. And, you know, there was a little girl in California who was...
Before we get to that, this clip is 54 seconds long. We are 44 seconds into it. And none of this preamble is worth it. She actually kind of screws it up. Because if you remember the context of the moment, Joe Biden had said at some event, I believe it was like Jesse Helms or Strom Thurmond, that he worked with them back in the day. It was really just old Senate shop talk that he was mentioning that he had worked with people across the aisle, even if he didn't agree with them. Kamala Harris is shredding him for that, saying it was hurtful to hear him talk about it, but she doesn't say in glowing terms, just to talk about them. So that doesn't land. What does land is everything that comes after this, and it only takes 10 seconds. So this lands, but she takes a while to get there. Here we go. Here's the detonation point.
Also worked with them to oppose busing. And, you know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me.
This apparently earned the enmity of Jill Biden forever. Kamala sold T-shirts saying that little girl was me immediately after this debate. So they knew that this was coming. I would not be shocked if there is a similar line and merchandise corked for Trump. So that was the high point of Kamala Harris in 2019. Here's the low point. The black sheep of this entire process was Tulsi Gabbard. I believe it was Andrew Yang, while joking about what the debate thresholds were going to be. He said, well, they will be 1 point above whatever Tulsi is polling at. Tulsi Gabbard's favorite target was Kamala Harris, who at this point was sinking in the polls. Let's go to this clip.
Criticized Hillary Clinton as the, quote, personification of the rot that has sickened the Democratic Party. What is the rot you see in the Democratic Party?
That our Democratic Party, unfortunately, is not the party that is of, by, and for the people. It is a party that has been and continues to be influenced by the foreign policy establishment in Washington, represented by Hillary Clinton and others' foreign policy, by the military-industrial complex and other greedy corporate interests. I'm running for president to be the Democratic nominee that rebuilds our Democratic Party, takes it out of their hands, and truly puts it in the hands of the people of this country, a party that actually hears the voices of Americans who are struggling all across this country, and puts it in the hands of veterans and fellow Americans who are calling for an end to this ongoing Bush-Clinton-Trump foreign policy doctrine of regime change wars, overthrowing dictators in other countries.
I don't think that Tulsi Gabbard will be using the Trump part of that doctrine if she goes forward, considering she has now endorsed him.
Needlessly sending my brothers and sisters in uniform into harm's way to fight in wars that actually undermine our national security and have cost us thousands of American lives. These are wars that have cost us as American taxpayers trillions of dollars since 9/11 alone, dollars that have come out of our pockets, out of our hospitals, out of our schools, out of our infrastructure needs. As president, I will end this foreign policy, end these regime change wars, work to end this new Cold War and arms race, and instead invest our hard-earned taxpayer dollars actually into serving the needs of the American people right here at home.
Senator Harris, any response?
Oh, sure. I think that it's unfortunate that we have someone on the stage who is attempting to be the Democratic nominee for president of the United States, who during the Obama administration spent 4 years full-time on Fox News criticizing President Obama.
That's
who
ridiculous,
has spent full-time,
That's
who has spent
ridiculous.
full-time criticizing.
All right, so here we go. This is Kamala on the attack. Kamala attacking Tulsi Gabbard. She is trying to create some distance. She wants a little bit of a rub for taking out somebody who's polling below her.
People on this stage as affiliated with the Democratic Party, when Donald Trump was elected, not even sworn in,
buddied up to Steve Bannon to get a meeting with Donald Trump in the Trump Tower, fails to call a war criminal by what he is as a war criminal, and then spends full time during the course of this campaign, again, criticizing the Democratic Party. What we need on the stage in November is someone who has the ability to win. And by that...
Okay, here's another thing, another bad habit of Kamala Harris is that when she knows she is flailing a little bit, she will show a sign of confidence, and that often is like a point and a nod. All right, let's go ahead and go back. If you are only listening, you're not going to see it.
Elected, not even sworn in, buddied up to Steve Bannon to get a meeting with Donald Trump in the Trump Tower, fails to call a war criminal by what he is as a...
See, that's her forgetting Putin's name.
War criminal, and then spends full time during the course of this campaign, again, criticizing the Democratic Party. What we need on the stage...
So here we go. She forgets what we need in office, but she is saying on the stage, so she's fumbling over her words.
In November.
There we go. In November. Point, nod. But it's only because she knows she's covering up for the fact that she stumbled over her words 2 or 3 times. She does have a cascade problem where if she stumbles over one, she'll stumble over another few before she can regain her footing. But here, Tulsi's going to clap back.
Someone who has the ability to win. And by that, we need someone on that stage who has the ability to go toe-to-toe with Donald Trump, and someone who has the ability to rebuild the Obama coalition and bring the party and the nation together. I believe I am that candidate.
Thank you, Senator.
Yes.
Congresswoman Gabbard, I'll give you a chance to respond.
What Senator Harris is doing is unfortunately continuing to traffic in lies and smears and innuendos because she cannot challenge the substance of the argument that I'm making, the leadership and the change that I'm seeking to bring in our foreign policy, which only makes me guess that she will, as president, continue the status quo, continue the Bush-Clinton-Trump foreign policy of regime change wars, which is deeply destructive. This is personal to me because I served in Iraq. I left my seat in the state legislature in Hawaii, volunteered to deploy to Iraq, where I served in a medical unit where every single day I saw the terribly high human cost of war. I take very seriously the responsibility that the president has to serve as commander-in-chief, to lead our armed forces, and to make sure always, no, I'm not going to put party interests first. I will put the interests of the American people above all else.
Thank you, Congresswoman. I want to briefly give Senator Harris a final second to respond.
I believe that what our nation needs right now is a nominee who can speak to all people. I spent my entire career standing mostly in a courtroom speaking 5 words, Kamala Harris for the people. And it was about all the people, regardless of their race, regardless of their gender, regardless of where they...
So she is completely disassociated from the argument. She is now right at her stub speech.
Live geographically, regardless of the party with which they're registered to vote or the language their grandmother speaks. We need someone on this debate stage in November who has the ability to unify the country and to win the election. And I believe, again, I am that candidate.
But that was not the only time that Tulsi Gabbard went after Kamala Harris. Here is another debate a few months later on CNN.
She's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
All right, so obviously that particular barb is not going to work in a general election because the Trump campaign believes that they want to paint Kamala Harris as soft on crime, not too hard on crime, like would be more palatable in a Democratic primary. But what is important to point out, and let's also note that Tulsi Gabbard is working with Donald Trump as the debate partner so he can tune up for this. what she hit right there is something that I am shocked the Republicans have not done yet. Kamala Harris isn't just laughing. She's laughing at you. Listen to what Tulsi Gabbard said. Kamala Harris put away all these people and then laughed about it. If you can paint Kamala Harris as casually cruel, as unserious about the issues, you are entirely undercutting the thing that she needs to win, which is, I am the prepared prosecutor. The biggest liability that Kamala Harris has is to be exposed as that and to react in the moment. Part of what shook Kamala Harris in that moment, for audio listeners, is that the crowd started to cheer and she looked down. That tells you everything you need to know. This is your update brought to you by TakePoliticsSeriously.com. That is where you need to go if you want to get 2 bonus episodes each and every week. Head on over there right now. $3 level. 2 bonus. Come on, guys, there's a lot happening, including a crazy story that happened on Thursday that I was actually kind of tangentially involved in. The tenant media thing, the Russian influence operation. Yeah, turns out that the person that is named in that indictment was booking me on RT for a year and a half. Hear more about that if you are a patron. Anyhow, Kamala Harris raised $361 million in August, nearly tripling Donald Trump's $130 million haul for the same period. This marked the best grassroots fundraising month in presidential history, according to her campaign, with $404 million in cash on hand. Harris has a $100 million advantage over Trump's nearly $300 million war chest. August was Harris's first full month as the Democratic nominee, and her campaign has raised over $615 million since she took the lead of the ticket in late July. The surge in donations followed her replacing Joe Biden, reversing the Democrats' financial disadvantage after Trump's rise in the polls following his New York conviction. Harris's campaign has heavily invested in political advertising, spending nearly $370 million in TV and digital ads, while also contributing $25 million to down-ballot races. Holy moly. That's a lot of cheese, dude. That is a lot of cash. We are rapidly getting to the point where you don't even really know what you can buy. Both campaigns are sitting on $300 million plus to spend between now and November. Honestly, like, there's only so much TV time to buy. There's only so many digital ads that you can buy. I have no idea where this money is going to go, but it's certainly going to go somewhere. Donald Trump raised about 150 something in the same period of time. So, good gravy. Good gravy. Speaking of Trump, his sentencing for his New York hush money conviction has been postponed until after the November election. This was originally set for September 18th. Manhattan Judge Juan Marchand delayed it to November 26th to avoid any perception of interfering in the presidential race. The delay means voters will cast their ballots without knowing whether Trump, the Republican nominee, will be sentenced or not. The delay follows multiple legal challenges from Trump's team, who argued that sentencing him during the campaign would amount to election interference. Trump was convicted of 34 felony counts related to his falsifying of business records to cover up a $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels during his 2016 campaign. Despite these challenges, Trump remains focused on his current campaign. I don't even know what to make of this. The legal phase of this campaign seems like about 11 years ago. It was, we barely remember the fact that he was almost assassinated. Good thing for him, or is it a bad thing? I think you can make the case that it's either way, because if Donald Trump were put in jail only a month before the election, that would now then become the biggest story, right? And so now that won't be the biggest story. The biggest story remains Kamala. So who knows? But then again, if he gets thrown in jail, maybe that's the final nail in the coffin. Maybe it's like, hey, look, the swing voters that were like, maybe, a guy in jail, too far for me. Former Republican Representative Liz Cheney has ramped up her opposition to Donald Trump, endorsing Kamala Harris for president at the Texas Tribune Festival. Cheney also revealed that her father, former Vice President Dick Cheney, will be voting for Kamala Harris. Dick Blue no matter who Cheney. Good gracious. If I could only go back to me in college when George W. Bush was literally Hitler and Dick Cheney was the actual evil one. To imagine that Dick Cheney and Adam McKay are on the same side. What a world. Dick Cheney and the Dixie Chicks are on the same side. That's a Big Ten. Dick Cheney stated that Trump can never be trusted with power again. Liz Cheney also said that she would be supporting Representative Colin Allred for Texas Senate. I have no idea whether or not that's good or bad. I have no idea whether the Dick Cheney thing is good or bad. If I were Donald Trump, I would bring it up during the debates, though. That if you want to vote for the party of Dick Cheney, then vote for Kamala Harris. I can't believe, man, we are in such crazy times. Just insanity. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. If you want to keep up with it, 2 bonus episodes each and every week. I mean, Dick Cheney voting for a Democrat. Nuts. $3 level, 2 bonus episodes each and every week. Come on, join the team. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. Back to the rest of the Kamala debate. Nothing, of course, is as close to what Kamala Harris is going to face on Tuesday than what she did in 2020 with Mike Pence, the vice presidential debate held by PBS. Let's get into it.
What would a Biden administration do in January and February that a Trump administration wouldn't do? Would you impose new lockdowns for businesses and schools and hotspots? A federal mandate to wear masks? You have 2 minutes to respond without interruption.
Thank you, Susan. Well, the American people have witnessed what is the greatest failure of any presidential administration in the history of our country. And here are the facts. 210,000 dead people in our country in just the last several months. Over 7 million people who have contracted this disease. 1 in 5 businesses closed. We're looking at frontline workers who have been treated like sacrificial workers. We are looking at over 30 million people who in the last several months had to file for unemployment. And here's the thing. On January 28th, the vice president and the president were informed about the nature of this pandemic. They were informed that it's lethal in consequence, that it is airborne, that it will affect young people, and that it would be contracted because it is airborne. And they knew what was happening, and they didn't tell you. Can you imagine if you knew on January 28th, as opposed to March 13th, what they knew, what you might have done to prepare? They knew and they covered it up. The president said it was a hoax. They minimized the seriousness of it. The president said, you're on one side of his ledger if you wear a mask, you're on the other side of his ledger if you don't. And in spite of all of that, today they still don't have a plan. They still don't have a plan. Well, Joe Biden does. And our plan is about what we need to do around a national strategy for contact tracing, for testing, for administration of the vaccine, and making sure that it will be free for all. That is the plan that Joe Biden has and that I have, knowing that we have to get a hold of what has been going on, and we need to save our country. And Joe Biden is the best leader to do that. And frankly, this administration has forfeited their right to re-election based on this.
Thank you.
All right, so let's take a look at that opening statement. You knew, no matter what, going into this, that you were going to get a question about COVID, right? This is in the midst of the lockdowns. The question is, from the moderator, what would you do that the Trump administration wouldn't? Spends the first part blistering them and the second part saying we're going to be competent, essentially. And we have a plan. They don't have a plan. Smart. But it's not particularly well delivered. She stumbles over her words a lot. It's not the worst version of what we have seen, especially in that initial debate with the Attorney General or for Senate when she was Attorney General. But you would have figured that question you would have nearly memorized. That's a worrying sign for me. When you don't have that memorized, when you can't just barf out your COVID answer in your sleep.
If the Trump administration approves a vaccine before or after the election, should Americans take it, and would you take it?
If the public health professionals, if Dr. Fauci, if the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line to take it. Absolutely. But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
Vice President Pence, there have been a lot of
Let's just go back to that. Let's just that one moment that Kamala Harris flirted with being an anti-vaxxer. Just so we remember, this has nothing to do with what's going to happen on Tuesday, but it's just, just so we're all aware that there's no issue that won't flip over on its head to attack the other side. Just one more time.
If the public health professionals, if Dr. Fauci, if the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line to take it. Absolutely. But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
If Donald Trump says that the vaccine works, even if Dr. Fauci said it, she's not going to take it. Anti-vaxxer Kamala Harris.
Have you had a conversation or reached an agreement with Vice President Biden about safeguards or procedures when it comes to the issue of presidential disability? And if not, and if you win the election next month, do you think you should? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So let me tell you, first of all, the day I got the call from Joe Biden, it was actually a Zoom call, asking me to serve with him on this ticket was probably one of the most memorable days of my life. I thought about my mother, who came to the United States at the age of 19, gave birth to me at the age of 25 at Kaiser Hospital in Oakland, California. And the thought that I'd be sitting here right now, I know would make her proud, and she must be looking down on this. Joe and I were raised.
I want to point this out. This is another moment where I think Kamala is over-prepared. She's giving a stump speech moment instead of answering the question first. This is something that we have tracked a lot in the debate footage that we have watched so far in this episode. She's got a problem with front-loading what should be the back of the question. Answer the question first and then say, when Joe Biden called. Because oftentimes, especially if you don't want to answer it, you don't need to go a long time. Because the question here is, have you talked to Joe Biden about presidential disability? Which, by the way, wound up becoming a pretty big issue. If her answer is no, I trust Joe and we'll keep all of these conversations private, then say that up front and then go into the heartwarming story. You don't want to end on the answer to the question, especially if it's an unpopular one.
In a very similar way. We were raised with values that are about hard work, about the value and the dignity of public service, and about the importance of fighting for the dignity of all people. And I think Joe asked me to serve with him because, I have a career that included being elected the first woman district attorney of San Francisco, where I created models of innovation for law enforcement in terms of reform of the criminal justice system. I was elected the first woman of color and black.
You can just hear it coming back to Donald Trump on Tuesday. She didn't answer the question. I don't know, very disrespectful for her to not answer your question. She didn't say anything. She said nothing. She just went on and on about whatever it was. I'll answer the question for you. You can just hear it. You can hear it.
Woman to be elected Attorney General of the state of California, where I ran the second largest Department of Justice in the United States, second only to the United States Department of Justice. And there I took on everything from transnational criminal organizations to the big banks that were taking advantage of homeowners to for-profit colleges that were taking advantage of veterans. And then, of course, now I serve in the United States Senate as only the second black woman ever elected to the United States Senate. I serve on the Senate Intelligence Committee, where I've been in regular receipt of classified information about threats to our nation and hotspots around the world. I've traveled the world. I've met with our soldiers in war zones. And I think Joe has asked me to serve with him because he knows that we share a purpose, which is about lifting up the American people. And after the 4 years that we have seen of Donald Trump unifying our country around our common values and principles.
Thank you, Senator Harris. You know, neither President Trump nor Vice President Biden has released a sort of detailed health information that had become the modern norm until the 2016 election. And in recent days, President Trump's doctors have given misleading answers or refused to answer basic questions about his health. And my question to each of you in turn is this information voters deserve to know? Vice President Pence, would you like to go first?
Well, Susan, thank you. And let me say, on behalf of the President and the First Lady, how moved we've all been by the outpouring of prayers and concern for the President.
And detailed health information about presidential candidates and especially about presidents, especially when they're facing some kind of challenge.
Absolutely, and that's why Joe Biden has been so incredibly transparent, and certainly by contrast, the president has not, both in terms of health records, but also let's look at taxes. We now know, because of great investigative journalism, that Donald Trump paid $750 in taxes. When I first heard about it, I literally said, "You mean $750,000? And it was like, no, $750. We now know Donald Trump owes and is in debt for $400 million. And just so everyone is clear, when we say in debt, it means you owe money to somebody. And it'd be really good to know who the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, owes money to, because the American people have a right to know what is influencing the President's decisions. And is he making those decisions on the best interest of the American people, of you, or self-interest? So, Susan, I'm glad you asked about transparency, because it has to be across the board. Joe has been incredibly transparent.
So this is an interesting moment, and this is a strength of Kamala Harris. She takes a question that she doesn't want to answer, which is, will Joe Biden release information about his medical history, and then turns it into Joe Biden is transparent, Donald Trump is not transparent. Let's talk about how not transparent Donald Trump is. He's not transparent about his taxes. That had to come to light via reporting. He owes $400 million to somebody, but we don't know who, and then looks directly into the camera. This is something that obviously she was coached on. I assume she's going to go back to on Tuesday, talk directly to the people. What do you think? The question is, compared to 2020, when there was a lot of angst, there was a lot of terror around COVID, and there was a lot of sympathy for somebody that was not Donald Trump, right now, Donald Trump has command on a couple issues that are at the top of their list. They agree with Donald Trump on the economy. They agree with Donald Trump on the border. Will Kamala be able to go to that well when we are doing this on Tuesday? Will there be the same kind of reception in the way that felt very much at home here in 2020?
Joe is going to invest that money in what we need to do around innovation. There was a time when our country believed in science and invested in research and development. so that we were an innovation leader on the globe.
One of the things that you're seeing a lot visually, if you are watching this, is Kamala Harris does a lot of pointed looks toward Mike Pence. I don't know how that's going to play on Tuesday. It is very aggressive. But then again, is that what, I mean, certainly it's not going to scare Donald Trump. It is a signifier to America saying, well, obviously we all know this. The last one she did was when like people who believe in science looks at Mike Pence. I don't know how it's going to play, though.
Well, I mean, I thought we saw enough of it in last week's debate, but I think this is supposed to be a debate based on fact and truth. And the truth and the fact is Joe Biden has been very clear. He will not raise taxes on anybody who makes less than $400,000 a year.
He said he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
Well, wait.
I'm speaking.
It'd be important if you said the truth. Joe Biden said twice in the debate last week that he's going to...
There's the laugh. There's the laugh. Okay, so this is a very important moment. This is a very important moment. Let's actually go back. Let's go back. So number one, Kamala Harris said earlier in this debate that Joe Biden would repeal the Trump tax cut. She said that earlier, right? So here we go.
Senator Harris.
Well, I mean, I thought we saw enough of it in last week's debate, but I think this is supposed to be a debate based on fact and truth. And the truth and the fact is Joe Biden has been very clear. He will not raise taxes on anybody who makes less than $400,000 a year.
He said he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
Well, wait.
I'm speaking.
Okay, so there we go. I'm speaking. This is now the third time she has said I'm speaking that we captured here. This time she does it smiling and laughing, and Pence comes back, gets her.
Important if you said the truth.
And Kamala has nothing.
Joe Biden said
she just looks at him and has absolutely nothing. This is what you worry about. It's what you worry about if you are prepping Kamala, is that she does have these lines. She's good at executing these moments. But when she's in space, she doesn't really have a good improvisational instinct to go forward. And I think that kind of tells the tale. Kamala Harris is a very charismatic person. She is somebody that, when shown in the right light and when delivering a moment that she has practiced, can come across credible. She is at her best when she is looking dead into the camera and relating to the American public. But I don't know if her instincts on when to do it are particularly good. In the vice presidential debate, she was very effective doing this, but that was when the American people were very much terrified about the job that the Donald Trump administration was doing. Now they're scared about the job that she was doing and Joe Biden is doing. Joe Biden was very unpopular. There's a reason why she is at the top of the ticket. The other thing that I would worry is that she is a slow starter. Most people watched the first 15 minutes of this debate. I didn't think that her opening statement in any of the debates that we watched here today were particularly good. And Donald Trump will be a more domineering presence than any that she has ever been across the table from. Mike Pence, while a capable debater in a Reaganite way, is not somebody that is going to be big chunkus. Donald Trump will come with heat that she has never seen before. That being said, she is cool under pressure. And when she delivers those prosecutorial 1-2 punches, they are extraordinarily effective. I just don't know how many she can land. Which brings me to this final point. There is a difference between football and baseball on one side and soccer, basketball, and hockey on another. Pardon this sports metaphor. But you don't really need to know sports to get it. Baseball and football start from static positions. Everybody is in one place, and then An action happens that begins play. Same with football. Football, it's the ball is hiked. Baseball, it is the ball is pitched. And then at that point, everybody can move. But what happens in those sports is that you generally have static strategies. In football, you have a play and you have a defense. The defense is trying to mitigate the play. Kamala Harris is great in those situations when she knows what she needs to do and she can execute on it. Meanwhile, you've got sports like basketball, hockey, and soccer. Those are constantly moving. Yes, there are plays. Yes, there are strategies, but mostly it's about athleticism and improvisation. Can you take advantage of the moment that is ever changing? Donald Trump is at his absolute best doing that. The moments that Donald Trump has notched have been when somebody has tried to challenge him and he came out on top. So because you'd be in jail would be the biggest one that happened during the 2016 debates. Can he take advantage of that? Can he improv his way around Harris's ability to set up moments? Can he diffuse those moments? And more specifically, can he turn them against her? That is what I'm going to be watching for on Tuesday. And that'll wrap it up for us today. Politics, 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 brought to you by me, written and hosted at the very least, Justin Robert Young for Dog and Pony Show Audio. You can email me, theyoungamerican@gmail.com. Find us on TikTok, Justin R. Young, Instagram, Justin R. Young, Twitter, Justin R. Young. All of our video episodes are full online for free. YouTube, youtube.com/@politics. Find the audio version at px3podcast.com. Support us with a one-time donation, paypal.me/payjury. Venmo is Justin-Young-20. Cash App is PX3Cash. And anything you'd like to send me in the mail, P.O. Box 153184, Austin, Texas 78715. Only way that you can get bonus episodes, $3, takepoliticsseriously.com. That's where you go. For the price of a cup of coffee, you get 2 bonus episodes, and I'm doing these things. Yeah, I just had a baby. Doesn't matter. Come upstairs, talk to you guys, because that is important at this stage of the game. Of course, if you want that and your name right at the end of the show, you got the Titanic $10 tier. Like these fine folks. Shout out to 2 new folks who are joining the list. Phil and the Borage Bee. Adam, Dr. Whiskey, CP Sean, David Potts, Nicholas, Whiskey Wolf, Sparky from Stevens, Florida, Will Porta, Fat Tony's PJs from New York, Devon, the CFP, Gloria, Grayzone, Peepaw, Jay, Marcus with a Q, DP4 Bongo, Sam, John, Niemeister, Edwin, and vote Gloria Young for King of the New World Order. Edison, Jeremy, a dog named Checkers, Sarah Jeannie, Matthew, Dr. G, Neil, his nerdiness, Charles, Audrey, Stoll Adler's Spot, Darren, Idris Arslanian, Bluefront and the Lenina, Berkeley, Steven, Chad, Zombie Doc, Matt P, Chill, Adam, Chief Andy, Robert, Casey, Paul, Dustin, Brad, D. Laser, Nick Wood, Just Another Pilot, Middle-Aged Mike, Utah, Jimmy, Montana, The Jen, Alo, D. Really, Craig, and Andrew, if you want your name read in the home stretch. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. Next week, God knows. You can't even count more than 12 hours ahead. Well, obviously we do know. It's going to be the debate next week. So full debate breakdown. Last time there was debate, a career ended. So it's going to be hot. Till then, this is your old pal Justin Robert Young saying some shows talk about politics, others talk about politics, and still more discuss politics, but this is the only one that still talks about all 3.